Welcome back. We're still in season 4. We got it wrong the first time. We said season 3. We're actually in season 4.
I said season 3.
Well,
Sorry.
so did I. So
moving right along. Episode 3.
Oh, this one.
Sorry.
I said don't name the episodes just in case. And here he goes. Effective communication, actually.
Okay.
That's actually what we're going to talk about today. Communication and conflict.
Okay.
I think I'm going to let you start. And basically, we're just going to talk about the importance of communication and how it differs for men and women.
Okay.
And obviously, it's vital for any relationship, not just between husband and wife. But if you think about any relationship that you have, communication is key.
So, proper communication, just going to kind of do a very short summary on what we did in marriage counseling.
Okay.
Premarital counseling. Which, if you have not done counseling, we highly advise you to do something, because that is where we learned how we communicate individually, mm-hmm. and how also we receive communication mm-hmm. individually. And so
isn't that a funny thing? Sometimes the way that you communicate is not even the way that you would receive it. It's interesting. So
if you don't know those things in any relationship, you may think that you're doing exactly what you think is right and what you even think is right for the other person, when in actuality they're probably not receiving anything. And so right away you're at a disconnect. And so that's probably the biggest thing with communication, is communicating on, hey, how do you receive things in a time of conflict when you feel this way or this way or this way. Mm-hmm. And then I even have notes that I go back to. I'm like, okay, this is going on. Let me look back at my notes and what you specifically told me to do in that time of how I need to be best supporting you and communicating to you. Mm-hmm. So that's wrapped up in a nutshell. You have to communicate with the other. Hey, when you're feeling this way, how do you want me to bring something up? Do you even want me to bring something up? That's also a big one. Mm-hmm. So as men, we are fixers.
Problem solvers.
Hear the problem, we got a solution. And so we're coming forth with that solution, and we're thinking like, oh, we're doing something so amazing. My wife has this problem that she obviously is bringing up to me for a very certain reason. At least that's how we're taking it most of the time. And it's like, oh, you're not feeling the greatest because of whatever. And so I'm like, I'm going to make her feel better. I got the solution. Babe, well, this is all that we need to do. And you're just like, not that ever happens.
All the time.
A lot. So a lot of the time, you guys just want to be heard. I'm not saying that guys aren't going to be in that similar situation. You just kind of want to get things off your chest every once in a while. But sometimes we just need to listen mm-hmm. and recognize those times. And so now I feel like I got a pretty decent formula of when you're coming to me with something.
Well, you ask.
And I'm like, do you want to hear my input, or do you just want to?
No. So
what do I say? Go ahead.
So usually he asks 2 questions. Sometimes...
No, that's what I would actually say to you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I see what you're saying. Look at that communication. But sometimes you'll just ask me, how can I best support you?
Yes.
That I noticed that he's been asking me a lot of that if I come to him with an issue, or if I'm venting about something, he's like, how can I best support you in this situation? The other thing that I've noticed you've said is, would you like me to take care of the issue, or do you just need me to hear you out? Like you've just,
right.
Cause I don't know which way to go. And women are very complex with our emotions. And, you don't say. And so sometimes we might want you to come up with a solution, and then 8 out of 10 times we'd rather just have you hear us out and give us the support that way.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I feel like we're always going to be working on it.
Mm-hmm.
But also I think, I was going to say something. I forgot it. Keys to communication, basically just communicate how you're going to be able to best receive communication if you even want that solution to a problem. And then also make sure that you're communicating to each other on, hey, this is typically how I'd express myself in certain times.
Mm-hmm.
Just so then, because when you do that, then I understand, like sometimes you could be mad at a situation, or a situation is kind of upsetting you, and it may kind of sound like you're upset with me. So knowing that, she's not upset with me. It's just a situation. Because that could then drive something into a ditch as far as that conversation, and then it could blow up into something that it never even needed to be, when all you're just venting and you want my support.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like when you talk about communication, you can open up a can of worms, because tone, right? Like how it's delivered, there's tone, there's the intention. And so sometimes when someone is upset or they're venting to you, it sounds like you said, you could take it personally.
Mm-hmm.
And then it can kind of spiral out of control that way. I think one of the things that I've realized in our relationship is that asking questions is okay. I think sometimes ego and pride gets in the way. And so if you're having a conversation, or even if it's an argument, say it's just a petty argument, but if you take something the wrong way and run with it, I think that's what creates a bigger conflict, instead of just saying, wait, are you saying that I blah, blah, blah? Because how many times will you say something to me? And I'm like, are you saying that I don't, whatever it is? Are you saying that I don't, well, I'm just going to throw this out there. I don't cook well, or I don't know. And you're like, did I say that? No, I said that I like my food salty. But what I heard was, I don't like your cooking. See what I mean? And so,
by the way, I never said that.
I'm giving that as an example, but doesn't. In fact, I'm the one who likes my food salty. So maybe that was a poor example, but
well, no, even last night. So, long story short. So I noticed if I eat poorly, and I'm working out right now at such a degree to where I had surgery on a knee, the knee gets a little swollen. And I noticed when the diet's bad, the knee's a little worse. And so there was something that I said last night where I was like, look, we did this 2 nights in a row, and the 2 days after, I really noticed that I was more swollen, and I've been feeling good. And so I'm like, I said, I don't know how many times. And then you said, do you remember what you said?
I don't remember.
Are you trying to say something? Are you trying to point something out to me right now? I literally just said I 5 times.
Oh my gosh.
So, but again, communication's key. So like I had zero intention of her feeling that way, but there's always the potential for something like that to happen.
Right, but I asked. But here's the thing. I think if you're going to ask a question, don't be able to receive what the answer is.
Okay.
Does that make... Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think depending on let's say how you grew up or how your past relationships have gone, you have a style of communication, right? And for instance, I don't think I'm the best communicator with you, even though and communication is what I do. It's my career. It's so vital, right? I even majored in it in college. But when you are with a person, your partner, your spouse, your right? Sometimes it's harder. And I think the reason why is because we take our past experiences and we're either carrying it, we're wearing it. So we're hearing with like a filter, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so that's why here he is saying, hey, my knee's been swollen the last couple of days because I ate sugar. I ate sugar the last couple nights. But what did I hear? I heard a dig. Like, we ate sugar because of you. Like, you trying to say something? I
didn't say.
No, and he didn't say that. So the thing is,
I'm all for it, by the way. I'm like,
so then I asked the question, like, are you trying to say something? And he said, no. So I have to be able to receive that. It doesn't make sense for you to ask the question and all you want to do is bicker after. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So can we bring up, so I don't know. Okay. Can we bring up the, well, hold on. Stand by. Before we go into the difference between a man and a woman and how they feel, is it loved? I don't know if it's loved. It's more how they...
Four basic needs.
Of a man and a woman.
Yeah.
And this is something we learn in premarital counseling.
Yes.
And it's so important.
Super big.
It's huge because then you understand how to communicate. But before we get into that, I have my notes. And do you notice sometimes when we talk about conflict, the reason why it becomes such a bigger conflict or the conflict grows is because one or more of these things are involved when you are prideful, when ego is involved, right? Or holding past hurts against someone, or worse, holding past hurts with other people from, your past, mm-hmm. and then wearing it while you're with your new, for you, my spouse. It doesn't work.
No,
it doesn't work. And then it starts to tear down. And I think that's the reason why we bring this up, because again, it's not just for married couples. It could be between you and your parents. It could be between you and your bestie. If you're full of ego or you're full of pride, then all you want to do is, as you're talking to someone, all you're doing is you want to get your point across. You're not even listening. Because a huge thing about communication is not so much just the talking, it's also the hearing and understanding. And are you hearing with, humble ears, so to speak, that you don't have to take everything personally.
Right.
Something that you have said, something that I have said to people that we're not in the same place anymore. I have noticed that sometimes people take things out of context. If there's something that I've said and maybe they took offense to it, I've had to tell them when they bring it up to me, I am not your enemy. I am on your team. And a lot of times it comes with an apology, but you said that to me just yesterday, I think. You're like, I'm on your team. I love you. But see, that's different because that's through text and you're like, I got to get through this quick. I got to text her back and get back to my patient. So that was his way of saying, I know I'm not giving you everything you need right now in terms of a response, but I'm on your team. I love you. And even after reading that, I'm like, I know, I got it.
I actually sent that text to you while...
You were with a patient?
Yeah.
I knuckle. Okay. Sorry. I don't know who you're working on, but it doesn't matter. We're not going to talk about that. But see, even something as simple as that spoke volumes. I knew in that moment he's super busy. He cannot respond, but he said just enough for me to realize, like, you're going to be good. And I've got your back. I just can't talk right now. And sometimes that's all it is. Mm-hmm. It's just to know that you have that support.
Yeah.
Women are so complex.
We're figuring it out. True science to it. So.
You opened up your Bible. Are you looking for something specific?
I couldn't even find it. But the verse is, let your conversation be full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everybody. So in context, it's both, I believe, for the believer and non-believer. Full of grace, seasoned with salt. The grace is a gift. The salt is to leave them thirsty for more of the word.
Colossians 4:6.
I was right. I was there. I'm in Colossians.
You are in Colossians.
The grace is a gift. The salt is so that the person, the hearer, comes back wanting more of that truth. And it's really talking about the word, the salt. We are the salt of the earth, light of the world. That's talking about the word, and the word in us and through us, working for the hearer. And so I think if we can approach every conversation kind of looking at it like we talked about it in the first episode, Jesus in the middle, Jesus at the center.
There's a filter.
Looking through Jesus, speaking to each other, both in marriage and also with anybody that you're speaking to. And so just having that and trying to get back to that. And sometimes you do need to step away. If the communication is just, it's literally doing this, just, I'm not discrediting the way that you feel or the way that I feel, and I'm not trying to shove it under a rug. I think that's the biggest thing, is we're not trying to push anything under a rug and just leave it, so that then once it gets pulled back up, then that's on top of whatever else is going on in that moment. And so you're reasoning with each other in that time. If something's just not sticking, if it's not landing, you got to step away for a second, breathe, eat, sleep, do what you got to do to come back in a more gentle manner and being able to understand each other. So if it's not that conversation full of grace seasoned with salt, step away for a second.
There's a reason why the grace part comes up, because grace is, you don't
deserve it.
You don't deserve it. You're offering it to someone that doesn't deserve it. So if you are in the wrong, sometimes, like I said, a lot of things, depending on how you grew up, or maybe you're having a tough day and you're getting into a conversation and you happen to take something the wrong way. You know, sometimes it's kind of like that back and forth where, he's having a bit of a day right now. I got to be a little more gracious in how I speak to him, and vice versa, right? Maybe more so when you have to do that with me. Let's just be real. Like, it just is. I'm more emotional than he is. But I think if you come in and you're not able to offer that grace, then everything is an attack. Then you feel like, and then all of a sudden, think about it. Think about how the enemy can use those thoughts. And granted, let's say these are familiar thoughts from your past, but he constantly brings it up. So now it's like you don't have a chance to effectively communicate, because in your mind, it's always an attack on you.
Right.
How many times, I've heard this, oh my gosh, I'm going to use my mom as an example. Ooh, mommy, she's going to be upset. Sometimes if she comes with a problem, my dad's such a problem solver. He just will, like, he's just going to say, you got to do this, you got to do this. And then also it's his tone, right? He's like, you just do this. Like, well, how do you not know that? Like, you just do this. Like, that's dad. And so when mom hears that, sometimes what she wants to hear is like, I hear you.
Right.
I hear you. Oh, that sucks. You might have the solution, but she wants you to empathize with her, have a little compassion for how she's feeling. So then you're adding on to the agitation. So then she comes to me, right? And guess what? I've heard this story before. So I'm like, Mom, what you got to do is this. And I'm pulling a dad. I start pulling a dad on her.
Trying to be a problem solver.
Right. And because that's the thing. The intentions are good. You want to help. But in that moment, that's not what she wants. And then she'll say, oh, you are always siding with your dad. I'm like, where'd dad come from?
Didn't even talk to him today.
I know. It wasn't even, but then that should always be my cue, right? That I just need someone to hear me, like, just hear me out. I don't need, like, just in this moment, because when she's in a calmer state, she'll be able to receive the solution and act on it. And maybe she won't even need us to tell her. Perhaps she already knows what the solution is, but in that moment, she's just looking for someone to be like, I hear you. We got you. We've got your back, or whatever it is. Right. I'm like that too. I think a lot of people will have that. It just kind of depends.
Well, and I think a big thing revolving around this, both in marriage and outside of marriage, are triggers. I mean, you talked about it. Yeah. Things from the past, the way that you communicated with other people in the past relationships. So there's triggers. And that can just be a deep-rooted seed that needs to be taken care of way down at the root, but it's just like the fruit and the conversation and the words that are just flying around, and so then it's hard to deal with. And so that's why I think you got to take a step back. Where is this coming from? Ask yourself that, or even ask the person that you're in communication with at that time, hey, where do you think this is coming from? Because I think about the time when I was in India and I said something not knowing it was a trigger, and you didn't even know it was going to be a trigger, but it ended up being a trigger because of the past.
Right.
And so then at that time, you still weren't open to the marriage counseling, the premarital counseling.
Right.
But it was that deciding factor where we had stepped away, prayed, kind of let things calm down for a second. And then the very next conversation that we had on the phone, you said, I see the need to kind of go through the premarital counseling.
Can I just be real for 5 seconds here? I didn't think we needed premarital counseling. I was like, well, we don't have any issues. We're not fighting. We're doing really well. And I thought counseling is for when you have problems. So why do we need to do it? What I learned through that counseling, it's actually more for yourself. It's not necessarily because you're having issues. It's learning how to communicate. It's learning your triggers. It's also trying to figure out if you have any open wounds that you need to take care of so you don't bring it into the marriage or the relationship. And something that the Kellys told us was that don't wait till you are in deep water.
Yeah.
They were saying as a couple, as individuals, you're going to evolve, especially your journey with the Lord. Of course, they're the Christian counselors. Your journey is going to be evolving. So it would be wise, every 2 to 3 years, or, if you've been married longer, check in with them. Do some sessions, hey, it's been a while. We haven't seen you guys. We'd like to figure out if we're still receiving the same way. Like, for instance, the 5 love languages, they say your love languages will change over time. And after experience, you're going to say, okay, if my number 1 was quality time, in 5 years, it could be gifts, right? It just depends. So, anyway, I say that because I was very prideful. I didn't think I was being prideful. I was like, what do you mean? We don't have any issues. And that's why I said, I'm like, I don't want to do premarital counseling. We're fine. Until we did it. And I realized, why was I crying for like an hour on the phone with Kelly during our first conversation? I didn't realize so much that I had, I was basically pouring dirt over some wounds. Like, you'll be fine. Just stay over there. And then now we needed to fix that.
And then I'm coming in the dirt's just like doing this, not even knowing it.
Right. I think one of our dogs is dreaming.
Chasing a ball.
He's chasing a ball in his dream. Can we go? Oh,
yeah. No, this is a good time to go over the 4 basic needs of a man versus a woman. And
why is this so important?
Well, it's so important so that then you can better kind of know communication, how someone's going to be able to receive things that you need to focus on for the opposite sex in your relationship.
Yeah.
Because if you're not and you have no understanding of these things, I could be it could be something so simple, but she's suffering in one of these 4 areas.
Right. And you're pouring and you're pouring and you're pouring, and yet it's not anything that I need. And so that's why this is so important. Okay, so let's start with a man. Can anyone guess? Take a wild guess. Wherever you're listening, if you're watching, just spit it out, because I thought I knew what the number 1 need for a man, I thought, was physical intimacy.
You wanted to say the other one. Sex. That's what that means.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's number 2.
Yeah.
So, how about you read the 4
for a man
of a man?
Okay. Should we go? Let's start with number 4. No?
Whatever you want to do.
Okay, let's start with number 4. Number 4 is domestic support.
What's that mean?
Doing things around the house.
Okay.
Keeping the house well maintained, We'll leave it at that. We'll get into this as we continue. So that's number 4. Number 3, companionship. Otherwise known as quality time. You want your partner. You want to hang out. He wants to go surfing, wants me to go. He wants to play golf, wants me to go. He wants to go shooting, wants me to go. And I'm like, but every now and then I have to be like, okay.
Okay.
We're gonna keep going. Number 2 is physical intimacy. Sex. Yes, which I thought was number 1. So can you guess what number 1 is? The number 1 need of a man. Honor and respect. I feel like a moment of silence for the truth here. Because honestly, if you think about it, gosh, don't you look back at some situations or relationships and you're like, oh, no wonder why that didn't work. It was because you weren't giving them the number 1. If you strip a man of his due honor or respect, they're not going to be able to give you what you need because you've belittled them. They don't feel, that's why in today's world, I feel like they are trying to strip men of their masculinity so that we don't have real men.
Honor and respect.
Right. Yeah. And so they're allowing them to be a little, anyway, I feel like I'm going to go off on a tangent. Let me just leave it at that. Honor and respect. So
4 basic needs of a woman.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah. And then we'll kind of talk at how we've experienced these ourselves, also in past relationships, and seen it in a lot of people. And we are part of those people, so we're not calling people out. Yeah. 4 basic needs of a woman. Number 4 is leadership. So they want to feel led, even though there can be a lot of times where it's like, yes, women, you can totally be independent, all those things. But inherently, literally within your DNA, this is not me just coming up with something. This is literally science-backed, psychologically backed, and biblically backed. You're going to want to feel led at some sort of capacity. Mm-hmm. A good leader, not obviously a leader who's going to put you down. That's not a leader in the first place. Mm-hmm. So let's scrap that. It's not someone who you're going to feel like you're being pulled along. In a sense, you're not going to feel like they don't respect you. They don't care about your feelings, your thoughts, or anything like that. That's not a leader. So let's just cut it at that. So leadership, proper leadership, in proper communication with that as well. Mm-hmm. Number 3 is non-sexual touch. Simply just like something like this. You're sitting on the couch, driving the car, or something like that. It's just a non-sexual touch so that you know, I'm here, I'm reaching out for you. And so that's going to be a very simple, some of these are just so simple.
Right.
And it's super fulfilling. So 3, non-sexual touch. 2, opposite of the man. Man was physical intimacy. Woman is emotional intimacy. So we're going to get back to this at how these 2 literally are clashing in the world today and why so many people are upset. And then number 1 for a woman.
Dun, dun, dun.
Security. Protection. Knowing that you are safe. Number 1.
Stability.
That you're safe. Things are stable. I've got you. I've got us. I've got the house. I got the dogs. If something ever happens, I'm going to literally step in and make sure that everybody's safe and secure.
So real quick, because I don't want to make this too long, but just think about the number 1. So for a man, it's honor and respect. For a woman, it's security. So the women, let's just say, let's throw this out there. If a woman is belittling her man, right?
That's a proverb.
Mm-hmm. Oh, read Proverbs about the complaining and nagging wives. Just read it. Okay, so let's say you're belittling him, you're not honoring him, you're not respecting him. How is he going to feel like a man who can provide you security and stability? You've already stripped him of that. So that's why all these things go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. Let's go to number 2. For a man, it's physical intimacy. For a woman, it's emotional intimacy. I'll never forget what Pastor Jeff Kelly said. He said, that's why you'll find a lot of men who are like, for lack of a better, term, she's not putting out. Like, men will say, I want it. She doesn't want it. And he goes, well, are you offering her emotional intimacy? Are
Right.
you asking her, how is your day, love? How is your heart doing? Just randomly. Like, if you feed her emotionally and offer her that emotional intimacy where she can come to you with anything, you're that safe place for her. See, security number 1. And then having that kind of emotional intimacy where it is safe, then the more she feels, I want to offer, because he has me emotionally, he's going to have me physically as well. Yeah. Right. So that's why those two go hand in hand.
Also, if I can add to that, that's why people, both Christians and non-Christians, because I know Christians who have thought it's okay to have sex before marriage as well. Yeah. The woman will typically give up that physical intimacy to the man in hopes that
there will be emotional intimacy.
There will be the emotional intimacy on the backside, which is not going to be the case. And so in God's design, he wants to make sure everybody is taken care of. So, guys, we're going to lay it on here. And just from experience, it's going to be difficult, but it's going to be worth it.
Are you talking about waiting till marriage?
Yes, waiting till marriage, but also not just looking at this one where we're talking about the physical and emotional in the verses of those, but men, if you think about these 4 for a woman, she's more than she will then start to fulfill the 4. It rarely is.
It's complementary.
Yes, it's complementary. But also you need to step up as the leader first. And you're going to have to take that step to do these 4 first. Typically, I'm not saying it's all the time, but it's going to be a much better relationship with both parties fulfilled if you as the man step forward, understand these 4: security for her, emotional intimacy for her, non-sexual touch, and leadership. If you give those, then inherently she's going to give back to you what is going to fill your cup. Mm-hmm. And if it's the opposite way, based on experience, being in the world, if she gives me the honor, respect, physical intimacy, the companionship, and the domestic support first.
So that means living with one another before marriage, for instance?
Sure.
Yeah.
All of that stuff, if you give it to the guy first, typically the guy's not going to give back those 4.
Why does he need to?
He feels fulfilled. Mm-hmm. But whereas the woman is more emotional, and it's inherently within us, but if we give first of these 4, you will 9 times out of 10 give it back in this way. It typically will not happen that way. If you give me the 4 first, it's then there's just this cutoff. And that's why so many people are unhappy in the world today. Number 1, you're living with each other. Just don't do it. Show me a good relationship where that actually fulfilled you guys completely. And then number 2, it's this constant thing where you're trying to figure things out. Why is she feeling that way? Why is he feeling this way? I'm giving him what he wants, but I'm not being fulfilled, or vice versa. Literally, that's why God designed it to be this way. Don't have sex before marriage. And guys, we're going to be the stronger individual in the aspect of being able to have self-control and being able to be that leader spiritually, then mentally and physically. And we are going to be able to get to that point where then we're getting married, and then you're serious, all the things come together much better, and then it's worth the wait. Did that all make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
So we are going to end it there because that was a lot. And I think we're starting to dip into the next episode. So I want to make sure that we give a fresh start, and we're going to take the 4 things,
okay,
and we'll kind of launch off of that in the next episode. So that was episode 3, since you had called it.
Oh, sorry.
Communication and conflict. Okay. Thanks,
See you
guys.
next
We'll see
time.
you later.